Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach and I did a workout before lunch. I haven't taken a shower yet and I can kind of tell. So I will take a shower after recording this episode, but you don't have to worry about that because you can't tell by watching. Anyway, so in the last episode, I left off at this part where I need to do something where if a return value is in play, that I do some checks on things. And if there isn't, if there's just a void, then I still do checks on the callback, but that's not required as something to validate, if that makes sense. Okay. And actually, now that I'm talking about it, I think this check that I'm talking about down below, I need to do something to say, if we're returning a value, then if the, I spaced for a second. It's not just though if the return value is generic, because the callback, the method could also use there could be a parameter in play. And then you'd want to check to see if you got to check all of it. So if anything within if the method is generic. The return value is not so much. So this one is necessary the way I'm showing it here, if the method is generic. And that would go right here, but before any of the validation. Because if the method returns a value, one or the other has to be set. We can't return anything that we throw a no return value exception. So in the case of a generic method, we have to put this check into play. And the reason why is because we have to, because of the case where we might not have any arguments here. And we have to check if the types are what we think they should be. So if they're not, then we don't do any validation. We don't increment call counts. We don't do anything in that. We don't try to get in here to do anything because, as we just saw, we hit this exception, I believe, and that's not what we want to do. Okay. So to reiterate in my head again, if you have a return value and if the method is generic, it doesn't matter if it's on any of the parameters or on the return value itself, you've got to emit this check before you go into the for each. But this is only for, and another thing too I realize is that for properties and really indexers, you can't have generics. Generics don't come into play. And actually, as I was working out to keep my mind off of actually sweating and heart rate high and all that other stuff, I started to go back to the question of, could I have an open generic as something to mock? But again, I came to the conclusion of no, because you have to be able to say an instance of something, and you can't have an instance of an open generic type instance, if that makes sense. So if you have like a list of T, you can't make a new list of T. You have to specify what the T is. You have to close it. So that's not possible. Okay. So let's do this. So this is only in the case when we have a method value. Okay. So let's close this and let's close that. And let's go to our method builder thingy, method builder. Where is this? Mock method value builder. Okay. So blah, 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 blah. I don't think we care in either case if, yeah, here we're already doing the incrementing of the call count. This is the part that was basically here. This is the same, happens in both cases. So what we need to do first is let's go to the one with parameters because it doesn't really matter. So right before here, this is where we need to do this check. And we need to say if method is, do I capture that? Is a generic method. Okay. So we're probably going to have to do this before and after. And then what we want to do is something where we are generating what we would do kind of in the method handler. So let's split the screen here. And let's come down here and let's get method handler in play. So we can take, oh, well, fine, whatever. You go up there. So blah, 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 blah. Yes. So in this case, what we want to do is something like this. Method handle, method is method is that. But we don't need the naming context here. We just need to do this. Okay. And of course, what's method cast? And because method cast, yeah, that's great. Okay. So here what we want to do is, well, not that. Writer dot write line, and yeah, that, come on, and that. Except we want to say if any of that. And what's method cast? It's this, but that hurts. It hurts because I'm going to potentially do it twice. So, it's a Saturday. My is now Okay, so now you've got that. Okay. So we want to say if the naming context is not null and it is this. But we need to have that in parentheses as well. Or, and then let's come back to our notes. Our method handler. Okay, so this is where we have to be doing this somewhere in here. Yeah. Okay, where are we doing this? Those are the ones that are doing the method thing. Here we do something is, okay. So we want to do all this here is the handler name. What's the handler name? Method, Jesus. This is where I'm just like, I shouldn't be doing what I'm about to do, but I really don't have much of a choice. Ugh. I know it's double work, and double work sucks, but needs must. And so what we want to put in here, yes. Okay, so it is this thing, is handler name. Okay. Just vomited in my mouth a little bit, but I'm fine. I'll move on. Okay. So this was in where we have with parameters. Okay. So the first thing we do is we say if it's a generic method, we have to do this to make sure that because we're returning a value that the method handler is not null and it would be of this type, or the method handler is of this type. And you may be wondering, wouldn't this be enough of a check? I'm wondering because if the method itself is generic and you're returning a type, then by doing this, you're going to do a func of something, and the func would be, or a delegate, I guess. But either way, it's going to be all of the parameters and the return type. The only thing is, though, is if we didn't set a callback, so we couldn't make that check. Okay. I had to go through in my head and say, could that be sufficient? And no, it can't be, because we need to make sure that that's not null to make this. Although I think you could do an is. Could you do that? Hold on. So let's say we go to our handy friend SharpLab, okay? And we say something like string, no, why do you do that? S is equal to null, okay? Now, can you say console write line? I don't know off the top of my head. Can you say S is string? See, it, but do that, then it is. So that's cute. Yeah, you can't do an is. The is here has to be on something that is not null, because if it's null, then it doesn't check. Okay, cool. Again, just had to reaffirm in my head that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, so now if there is one here, we need to do a writer, right line, and an indent, and an indent, and an indent. Say that fast 5 times. Okay, because now what we have is we're going to have above the for each here that if check. Now we will go through, if there were arguments to check, they would fall in here. And now we're going to increment the call count. We can do this, but we can do it safely because we know it is of that type. Okay, but we didn't check to say it's one or the other. Okay, we're not going to do that just yet. We're checking to see if the types were correct. And in this case, this will make sure that you actually did one or the other. But we're not done yet because we have to come all the way down to where. So now we do the for each, and we did if method parameters length is greater than 0. We do this because this is where we're going to do the expectations check. So somewhere down below here, we're doing that there, and then we need to do this here to close that off, because that's not confusing as hell. I severely feel bad for somebody if they'd ever have to maintain this, because it's like, what are you doing? I have no idea. This cracks me up sometimes. Okay, but I think we got the check in place. I think we are now doing the right thing. Okay, this might break some code in their tests, but that's okay. We can handle that. Let me run the tests and let's see what happens. Okay, 7 tests are failing now, but it looks like all of them are because the generated code doesn't match. And the unfortunate aspect of doing this is that this puts code in a place that makes the diff between the two hard to reconcile, if that makes sense. So like, for example, if I come here, come on, go to Test Explorer, go to Test Explorer. Why are you not going to Test Explorer? Oh my God, what the? Jeez. Took forever. Okay. So let's just take a look at what the code was that it actually generated. It says if, yeah, because it used to have the for each there. Now it has the if here. It says if the method handler method is not null and the method handler method is global, this, blah, 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 blah. Or the method handler itself is global, blah, 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 blah. So we had 1, 1, 2, and then this is the 1, where is it? 1, 0. Okay, if you wonder, I was just counting parentheses. That was like one of the first tricks I learned many, many, many years ago. Of course, if you need to count parentheses, you could argue and say, well, your code's too complicated in the first place, which to that I say, pfft. Anyway. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to go through, and I'm going to go through all the rigmarole of changing these and making sure they're correct. Once that's done, I'll come back when I know all the tests here work. Okay, I had to come back before I fix all these because I just realized, and of course you might have been watching this going, you, Jason, you stupid moron, why are you not seeing this? I have to move the if into the for each because I don't have a method handler here at this point. So, but that's okay. I just need to reverse to 2. And then I'll run all the tests and then I'll fix the thing. So let's go back to, let's at least record this. I'm so discombobulated here. So basically want to do in the build with the, I didn't do this in the other one, did I? No, I did not. Yes, so here I just need to move this down. So it's here. And then I need to reverse this order. Okay, why is this moved over like that? I don't know. Build method handler, no parameters. Just does that? Well, what does it do with returns? I guess in that case, we don't care in the sense that, well, no, we do. So it's right in the sense that it says method handler here, but we need to, okay, we're good. So, oh, wait a minute. This is the case I was talking about. God, this is such tricky, like, surgery work. Yeah, so we do that in one case if you have nothing there. No generics, no parameters, nothing, then we call this. But this is a method that returns a value. This literally means you have no parameters. So you could literally only have one. Okay, and there would be no generics in this case. Okay, I just had to make sure of that. And I'm still not sure myself. Okay, so what did we just do here? This is getting so messy. I should drop my glasses. I was so frustrated. We go through all the method handlers. We got to have this first. And we need to do this check first. If you have parameters and the method is not generic, then you do this. Because if it was generic, you would have put this here. But that's no. Yes, but no. But yes. We got to do this. Okay. And then right at the end, we do one more, no matter what, because that's what closes off the for each loop. Okay. Now we say if your method is generic, we put an if statement in and we indent. Okay. Now, if you have parameters, but you're not a generic method, then you need to put these in here. We got to put this in here. Okay, that's a given. Because we need to now do an if. And so the generic method check will be right here. Okay. Now this is only going to be here in the case because we just did this. Would we need to do this at all? I don't think so. If we don't do this, we still have this here. And we can start building our if checks. And the build method handler happens, yeah, so I think we can get rid of this. Because we just sneak this in here if we need to do it. We do all of our ifs. We indent, we call the method handler, we outdent. We no longer do this, right? Maybe? We do a for each on here. If we are a generic method, we do these checks and we add another indentation. If we don't, we already did this and we added indentation. We start doing all the checks there. What does that do here? So let's back up the bus here for a second. Do that. And I just gotta say, this gets so complicated. This gets so complicated. It's not even funny how complicated this can get. Huh? Weird. Now let's check out some of these things. That's a void. Okay, that's fine. So we do the check now at the if. That's good, just to make sure that because it's going to return something, in this case OBT, we do our ifs, we return, I think that looks good. Void we don't care about. The int, because we are not generic, so we don't care, so that clears out. That looks good. Let's see if this builds. This is also a good indicator if, because we have, this one covers, I think, a lot of cases, or some of them. So if we have a compiler error, it should show pretty quick. It passes. Doesn't mean that we don't have compiler errors somewhere else. So let me go through all the tests again and see where we're at. Okay, we're down to 6 because we fixed this one. These also look like textual diff errors. So I'll try to fix these 6 and see if I can do that. Okay, all 597 tests passed now. So I'm going to commit this, shut down startup again, run all the integration tests, and see if they work. Hopefully they do. Okay, I panicked for a second because I'm like, 3 still failed. And I'm like, I thought I fixed this, but then I looked through them. There are 3 different tests in 3 different places, and all of them are failing because the exception changed. And it makes sense because they used to be no return value exception, but now they're expectation exception. And that makes sense because we're probably putting in a check to say the types don't match. And so we don't get into the logic of the code where it was only happening once. We're getting out none of the expectations are actually met, and so we throw an expectation exception. And the other 3 in the tests that I just created work. So let me fix these and see if they all run again. Okay, success. All the tests pass. So now I'm going to run the code generation tests and see, did I screw something up? I think there's still 4 that I'll get 4 errors, but that's a known bug for something completely different. So that's okay if I get those. So I'm going to run the code gen tests now and see what happens. And we have success. I know you see red or you see error counts, but this is a different problem. This is one I already know of. Nothing else showed up. I consider this issue solved. So I'm going to commit it, close out the issue, edit the changelog, all that good stuff. But this issue is closed. We're going to move on to something different in the next episode. Thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.